Hey there, fellow spooky enthusiasts and skeptics. Welcome to Haunting History, where we, and by we, I mean me and the terrified cameraman in the corner, dive headfirst into the unsettling world of objects with creepy pasts. Look, I'm not saying I believe every ghost story out there. In fact, I'm a firm believer in logical explanations most of the time, but sometimes, just sometimes, you stumble upon an object so steeped in eerie history, so closely tied to unsettling events that you can't help but wonder, what if there's something more to it? So buckle up as we unpack the stories behind some of the most infamous cursed artifacts, haunted relics, and just plain creepy stuff that's managed to freak out generations. We'll be separating fact from fiction, or at least trying to, while exploring the history and hauntings that have made these objects legendary. Let's just hope none of them follow us home, right? All right, let's kick things off with a classic haunted dolls. I'm talking about those creepy, wide-eyed figures that seem to stare straight into your soul. And no, I'm not talking about your grandma's porcelain doll collection, although those are creepy enough on their own. Today, we're diving into the story of Robert the Doll, a seemingly innocent-looking sailor doll with a seriously unsettling reputation. This isn't your average dusty attic find. Robert has been the subject of whispers, rumours, and some downright terrifying accounts for over a century. Now, you might be thinking, Shane, it's just a doll. How scary can it be? And to that, I say, have you ever looked into the eyes of a doll that's rumoured to move on its own, change expressions, and even giggle menacingly? Yeah, I didn't think so. Let's just say Robert the Doll is not your average plaything. Robert's story begins in Key West, Florida, back in 1906. Imagine, if you will, a time of horse-drawn carriages, gramophones, and apparently haunted dolls. A young boy named Robert Eugene Otto, or Gene as he was known, received a life-size doll as a gift from a Bahamian servant who worked for his family. Now, this wasn't just any servant. Rumour has it that the woman dabbled in black magic and wasn't too fond of Gene's family. Some even say she cursed the doll before gifting it to the unsuspecting boy. Whether it was the curse or just some seriously bad vibes, things took a turn for the creepy pretty quickly. Gene became inseparable from his new doll, even giving it his own name, Robert. I guess Robert's doll would be a bit redundant, right? But this wasn't just a case of childhood attachment. People started reporting strange occurrences in the Otto household, all seemingly centered around little Robert the doll. Imagine this. You're walking past Gene's room and you hear two voices, one clearly a child's, the other different, deeper, raspier, and undeniably creepy. That's what guests of the Otto family claimed to have heard. Neighbours swore they saw the doll moving from window to window when no one was home. Objects would move, furniture would overturn, and Gene's parents were at their wits' end. Gene, however, remained fiercely attached to Robert, claiming the doll was innocent and that all the strange happenings were just Robert playing. Yeah, I wouldn't be using the word playing lightly in this situation, but hey, what does a skeptical investigator like me know? Years passed, Gene grew older, and Robert the doll's reign of terror, or mischief, depending on who you ask, continued. After Gene's parents passed away, he inherited the house, and, you guessed it, Robert. He even gave the doll his own room. Now, I'm not saying that's a recipe for disaster, but I'm also not saying it isn't. Gene eventually moved out, leaving Robert behind in the house, but the stories didn't end there. People visiting the house claimed to hear footsteps, giggling, and even saw the doll moving in the windows. Robert's reputation as a seriously creepy, possibly cursed, and definitely haunted doll was cemented. Fast forward to the present day, and Robert the doll is no longer lurking in a dusty old house. He's achieved, well, let's call it celebrity status in the world of the paranormal. He now resides in a glass case at the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, where he attracts curious visitors and terrified tourists alike. And get this, people write letters to Robert asking for his forgiveness, or even his blessing. I guess some people just really like to tempt fate, right? So, what's the verdict? Is Robert the Doll a genuinely haunted object, cursed by a vengeful spirit? Or is it all just a case of overactive imaginations and a century's worth of spooky stories? I'll let you be the judge. But if you ever find yourself face to face with this creepy doll, maybe think twice before taking a picture with flash. You never know how Robert might react. From haunted dolls, we move on to another object with a chilling reputation. Mirrors, but we're not talking about your average bathroom mirror, no sir. Today's subject is a mirror steeped in sadness, tragedy, and some seriously unsettling stories. Get ready to peer into the history of the Mirror of My Soul, a chilling artifact from the infamous Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Now, for those unfamiliar with Waverly Hills, let me just say, this wasn't your typical spa retreat. This sanatorium, located in Kentucky, housed thousands of tuberculosis patients in the early 20th century, a time when the disease was often a death sentence. And as you might imagine, death and despair tend to leave their mark on a place, especially when it comes in the form of a haunted mirror. The Mirror of My Soul wasn't always associated with fear and dread. In fact, it was originally intended to bring a glimmer of hope to the patients of Waverly Hills. Imagine being confined to a sanatorium, your body ravaged by disease, your future uncertain. A mirror reflecting your own image could be a powerful reminder of your humanity, your individuality, in a place where hope was often in short supply. But as with many things at Waverly Hills, even the most well-intentioned objects seem to take on a sinister life of their own. The stories surrounding the Mirror of My Soul are as varied as they are unsettling. Some say the mirror reflects not just your image, but also the spirits of those who died within the sanatorium's walls. Visitors and paranormal investigators have reported seeing shadowy figures moving in the mirror's reflection, fleeting glimpses of patients past, forever trapped within its depths. Others claim to feel a cold, unsettling presence when near the mirror, a sense of dread that washes over them like an icy wave. It's said that the mirror absorbs the energy of the suffering and despair that permeated Waverly Hills, becoming a conduit for the restless spirits trapped within its walls. As if seeing shadowy figures in the mirror wasn't unsettling enough, some believe the Mirror of My Soul acts as a portal to the other side. Now, I'm not saying I believe in interdimensional travel via haunted mirrors, but then again, I've seen enough weird stuff in my time to know that anything's possible. Legend has it that the mirror can trap souls, preventing them from moving on to the afterlife. These trapped spirits are then said to reach out from the mirror's depths, desperate to escape their spectral prison. The Mirror of My Soul remains at Waverly Hills, a chilling reminder of the sanatorium's tragic past and the countless souls who perished within its walls. While the sanatorium is now a shadow of its former self, a crumbling testament to a bygone era, the stories surrounding the mirror continue to send chills down the spines of those brave enough to visit. It stands as a stark reminder that some objects hold on to their history, their energy, and perhaps even the spirits of those who interacted with them, long after they're gone. So if you're ever feeling brave, curious, or maybe just a little bit crazy, consider a visit to Waverly Hills Sanatorium. But be warned, the mirror of my soul doesn't reveal its secrets easily. Are you ready to face the reflection of not just yourself, but also the spirits that might be trapped within? Or will you heed the warnings and avoid gazing into its depths, lest you become another soul claimed by the haunted mirror of Waverly Hills? All right, folks, buckle up for this one. We're about to embark on a journey that's equal parts eerie and fascinating. We're diving headfirst into the world of haunted paintings, and trust me, this ain't your grandma's still life of some fruit. These paintings have a history, a story that goes beyond the canvas and paint. This is the story of the portrait of a man, a painting so unsettling, so profoundly creepy, that it's said to hold the tormented soul of its former owner. Imagine living with a piece of art that might just be more alive than you are. Now, I'm not saying I believe in all this hocus-pocus, but there's something about a painting that supposedly stares at you, follows you with its eyes that just sends a shiver down your spine. It's like the eyes are windows to a soul trapped in time. It's like, dude, I came here for art, not to be creeped out by some dead guy's gaze, but here we are, questioning our sanity in front of a piece of canvas. But hey, that's the thing about these haunted objects, right? They have a way of making their presence known, whether we like it or not. They don't care about our comfort levels. They exist in their own realm, oblivious to our modern sensibilities. They're like that friend who blasts polka music at 3 a.m., completely oblivious to the terror they inflict, and yet we can't help but be drawn to them, like moths to a flame. So let's unpack this spooky masterpiece and see if this portrait of a man is truly haunted, or if it's just a case of people letting their imaginations run wilder than a sugar-crazed toddler in a bouncy castle. Either way, it's bound to be an intriguing tale. The story goes that this painting was crafted by a struggling artist back in the 1800s. This guy, let's call him Bob, because why not, was desperate for his big break. He poured his heart and soul into his work, but fame, and more importantly fortune, eluded him. One day, a wealthy patron strolled into Bob's dusty, cobweb-filled studio and offered him a commission. It was a portrait, a simple enough request, but the pay was enough to make Bob do a double take. This was it, his ticket to the big time. But here's the twist. The subject of the portrait was an imposing, stone-faced man with a gaze that could curdle milk. This guy, let's call him Reginald because it sounds appropriately stuffy, had a reputation for being, shall we say, unpleasant. Some whispered that he was cursed, that tragedy followed him like a lost puppy. Others just figured he needed a good hug and a Snickers bar. Either way, Reginald's presence cast a shadow over Bob's newfound good fortune. As Bob toiled away on the portrait, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was as if the air in the studio had grown heavier, more oppressive with each stroke of his brush. Reginald's gaze seemed to follow him around the studio, those piercing eyes boring into his soul. The eyes, almost lifelike, seemed to hold secrets that Bob couldn't quite grasp. It was like the man was sucking the life out of him, replacing it with a creeping sense of dread. Each day, Bob felt more drained, as if the portrait was feeding off his very essence. Now, you might be thinking, Shane, my man, maybe Bob was just tired. After all, artists often lose themselves in their work, sometimes to the point of exhaustion. You know, artists, they're a sensitive bunch. They pour their heart and soul into their creations, and it can take a toll on their well-being. And yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it was just the stress of the project getting to him, or maybe, just maybe, there was something more sinister at play. Something that defied logical explanation. The story gets even weirder, folks. As Bob neared the completion of the portrait, strange occurrences began to plague his life. As Bob neared the completion of the portrait, he started experiencing a string of bad luck that would make a black cat crossing your path look like a walk in the park. It was as if the universe itself was conspiring against him. First, his pet parrot, which he'd named Picasso, creative, right, suddenly keeled over. The bird had been healthy just moments before, then his studio flooded in a freak rainstorm. The water came out of nowhere, drenching his supplies and ruining several pieces of his work. And if that wasn't enough, Bob came down with a nasty case of the flu that had him coughing up a lung. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing was too uncanny to ignore, or maybe, just maybe, Reginald's bad juju was rubbing off on our poor artist. The portrait seemed to hold a dark power, one that was slowly consuming Bob's life. Despite the mounting misfortunes, Bob, bless his determined little heart, managed to finish the portrait. And let me tell you, it was a masterpiece. It captured Reginald's icy demeanour perfectly, from his severe expression to those unnervingly lifelike eyes. Reginald, surprisingly, loved it. He paid Bob a king's ransom and promptly hung the portrait in his grand manner. And that, my friends, is where things took a turn for the truly bizarre. You see, shortly after the portrait was hung, Reginald met an untimely end. It was a freak accident, they said, a loose chandelier, a poorly timed sneeze, you know, the usual. But rumours began to swirl, whispers of curses and vengeful spirits. Some folks claimed that Reginald's soul was trapped within the painting, forever bound to the canvas. Others said that the portrait itself was cursed, a conduit for misfortune and misery. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain, that painting had a serious case of the creeps. Years passed, and the portrait changed hands like a hot potato, moving from one owner to the next with alarming speed. No one could bear to keep it for long, as if it carried an invisible curse that repelled anyone who dared to possess it. It's said that those who dared to display the painting in their homes were plagued by strange occurrences, unexplained noises, sudden illnesses, and a general feeling of unease. The air would grow cold, and shadows seemed to dance in the corners of rooms. Imagine walking into your living room only to find that the eyes of the portrait are following your every move. It's as if the figure within the frame is alive, watching, waiting. Talk about a mood killer, right? The unsettling presence was enough to make even the bravest souls shiver. It's enough to make you want to trade in your vintage furniture for a minimalist apartment with nothing but beanbag chairs and a lava lamp. Anything to escape the oppressive aura of that cursed painting. One owner claimed that the portrait caused his prized orchids to wilt and die. The once vibrant flowers turned to lifeless husks within days. Another swore that he saw the figure in the painting move, its eyes flickering back and forth as if watching him from beyond the grave. The sensation was so real it sent chills down his spine. And then there was the story of the art collector who, after acquiring the portrait, suffered a series of financial setbacks that left him penniless. His fortune seemed to vanish overnight. Coincidence? Bad karma? Or perhaps something more sinister at play, or the work of a vengeful spirit trapped in a canvas prison seeking retribution from beyond the grave. So there you have it, the tale of the portrait of a man. Is it a chilling example of a haunted object imbued with the restless spirit of its subject? Or is it just a creepy painting that's been saddled with a bunch of spooky stories over the years? Honestly, I'm leaning towards the latter. I mean, paintings are creepy enough on their own, right? They stare at you, judge your every move, and they never blink. That's just rude. But hey, I'm not here to burst anyone's bubble. If you want to believe that this portrait is haunted, be my guest. Just don't blame me if you start seeing shadowy figures in your peripheral vision or hear strange whispers coming from your hallway at night. Because when it comes to the paranormal, I'm all about the stories, the legends, the what-ifs. And this, my friends, is one heck of a spooky story. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of Haunting History in the Books. We've journeyed into the eerie unknown, explored the stories behind some seriously creepy objects, and hopefully given you a few good scares along the way. Remember, whether you're a seasoned ghost hunter or a skeptic like myself, there's no denying the power of a good spooky story. So the next time you're browsing an antique shop or admiring a piece of art, take a closer look. You never know what kind of history, what kind of energy might be lurking beneath the surface. Until next time, keep it spooky.